That'll be a little something to do on a Friday night. Did I tell you guys that the Yankees are going to the World Series? That happened. That happened, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. It happened. It was an amazing weekend. What is it? It's Thursday. We're still talking about the weekend? Jeez, Frank. Anyway, I have some announcements to make because we have a great call coming up tonight. We're going to be with a man named Alex Petkas. And he is a man who's going to be able to lead us through a wonderful conversation that will take us through the ancient world to find modern parallels, talk about where we are right now, where we've been in the past, what might be different in the future this time around. If anything at all, it's going to be great. He's a fantastic guest. He does good work. He is the host of a really awesome podcast. If you are a fan of history, especially ancient history, this is a podcast you're going to have to add to your subscriber list, wherever the hell you get them. And we'll talk about that in just a second. The podcast is called The Cost of Glory with Alex Petkas, and that's who we have on tonight. Tomorrow, I think it's going to be Matt, and we'll see what else is going on there. I want to do some spooky stories. I want to talk about that witch thing, chill out. We might be off a little bit early. Things are going to change up just a little bit until the World Series is over, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, on Monday we have Jeremy Ryan Slate and Roger Stone. We're going to do that. I mean, Jeremy Ryan Slate is going to be keeping up with the Yankees as well. He's a Yankee fan, but that's going to be an amazing night with Roger Stone. And we're getting so close to the election. On Tuesday night, we got really graceful. Grace is coming on to talk about all the weird things that are happening in the country. Executive orders, what's going on in the Carolinas with the hurricane responses. It's so much. And I also want to talk about the Halloween costumes that were, I want to show that. I want to do that on Tuesday night. But once again, might be a little bit of an early exit, not too early. On October 30th, ladies and gentlemen, Wednesday, October 30th, I will not be here. I have found a way to not destroy myself and to bring my mother to the World Series. Going to Game 5, which I am rolling the dice, is going to be necessary because I don't see anybody sweeping anybody with this matchup. I'm going to the World. I can say that. I'm taking my mom to the World Series. That'll definitely be some part of the behind the scenes for the behind the scenes material for the November bulletin. No doubt about it. Got to take some pictures. Maybe I can go live somehow. They usually deaden all the service over there, but maybe I can upload some stuff. I don't know what I can do from there, but I will be on October 30th, next Wednesday, I will be going live in the middle of the day. I'm going to do a midday broadcast instead. We'll do a little bit of news. We'll take calls. It'll just be a call-in show in the middle of the day, so it won't be a whole day off. It'll just be, we're just shifting the hours around because that night, it's an 8:08 first pitch. I'll probably have to take my mom at least by 5 o'clock. At least. I have no clue what we're in for. It's gonna be fun though. And then it's Halloween, which is another thing. Next week, for those of you who are in the book club, are active members of the book club, on Monday the 28th, that is not going to be the book club. The book club is going to be after the Halloween show that we are doing with Dr. Albert Taylor. Then we're going to talk about the monkey's paw on Halloween. It's going to be even better. And also because I won't be, no way I can broadcast late on Monday night with the World Series going on. So there's that. I think it works out even better. And, oh man, there's just so much more. Then Matt is in on November 1st. All of a sudden it's November 1st. That's, wow. We're in November now. It's only getting better and better. We got James Corbett coming on next month. We've got Timothy Alberino coming back to talk about whether or not Mars was what's left over of a nuclear war. We've got a health insurance whistleblower coming on November 19th. His name is Chris Hamilton. I can't wait to talk about health insurance and the world that existed before health insurance destroyed everything. We've got herbal specialists coming on. Jane Barlow's coming on, herbal specialist, on November 20th. This Matt Dawson, extreme adventure athlete. He's coming on the night before Thanksgiving. It's going to be good. Going to be a good time. I also would like to just stress that we have 3 threads on quitefrankly.tv that we would really love you guys to take to participate in, so that we can feature you on the bulletin. And that is, what are you thankful for? Quitefrankly.tv forum, and it's right there. What are you thankful for? Get in there and tell us what you're thankful for. And then there is fan photo submissions. Show us where you've been lately. Vacations, any kind of personal accomplishment, family outings, anything. Let us know where you went. Give us a little bit of a caption. We want to feature you. And then lastly, do you have any recipes? We want recipes. Thanksgiving recipes. You put them in the content submissions right there. We're looking for Thanksgiving recipes. So for all of you who have a culinary strong suit, we need you. We need you. It's such an important part of everything that we do. Okay, what else is there? We have so much to talk about after the fact. I guess we can talk about this right now. The Menendez brothers are really close to getting out. This is from ABC News. Menendez brothers' latest, LA District Attorney recommends resentencing. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon has recommended resentencing for Lyle and Eric Menendez, who are each serving life in prison without parole. Quote, "We are going to recommend to the court on Friday that the life without possibility of parole be removed, and they would be sentenced for murder, which would be a sentence of 50 years to life." Gascon said that new conference on Thursday, but because of their age, they both were under 26 at the time of the crimes, they would be eligible for parole immediately, he said. The final decision will be made by the judge, and the parole board must also approve, Gascon said, as the brothers' family, Eric Menendez's wife, looked on. Gascon said that he hopes to get a hearing on the docket within the next 30 to 45 days. Was he already married when he went into jail, Eric Menendez? Was he already married to his wife, or is this one of those couples that found each other during a prison sentence? I wonder. I believe that they have paid their debt to society, Gascon said, noting that brothers have been behind bars for nearly 35 years. So much has happened, and they've been there the whole time. So, be on the lookout for that. Unless something has already happened and I missed it. I don't know. Here's another one for you. Be still, my heart. From The Independent, Trump again pushes the idea of no taxes for anyone. You mean Americanism? Americanism comes back for the federal government? You're telling me that Americanism is back? Can you imagine that? I mean, it's a great idea. It's a great way to restore the country to what it's supposed to be. But where the hell is he going to find where is he going to find the congressional power to do that? That would require another amendment, no? A repealing? It would have to repeal it. Unless you get somebody to, unless there's some way to congressionally strike it on grounds of unconstitutionality. That's something I would want to bring Chris-Ann Hall on for and talk to her. It's been a while, and this might be something great to talk to her about. Former President Donald Trump has again suggested his wildest tax reform plan, fully removing federal income taxes and saying that the lost revenue can be replaced by funds received from tariffs. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. Now, of course, what would go along with this is that there needs to be massive dismantling of the largely illegal government structure that we have. The departments have got to go. This government can be funded very easily through tariffs alone if it goes down to its appropriate size and scope. Appearing at a barbershop in the Bronx on Monday in a segment broadcast on Fox News, Trump was asked when the country could end all federal taxes. The former president suggested returning to the policies of the 1800s. It had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax, Trump said. Now we have income taxes, and we have people that are dying. They're paying tax, and they don't have the money to pay the tax. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. They keep talking about fair share and all that shit. I can't. Similarly, in June, Trump suggested that federal income taxes be replaced by funds obtained via tariffs, something that he has not explained further. What do you mean? What's there to explain? Everybody's got to get a haircut. We got to stop wiping the ass of the world. We have to stop providing military defense for the entire world. We have to keep our eyes focused on what we have going on over here. Keep the post office open and let the states take care of everything else. It's not that hard. The Constitution is the size of a pamphlet, a flea market pamphlet. Experts on both sides of the aisle have criticized his idea, of course, because both sides of the aisle are leftist loons. Okay? Experts on both sides of the aisle have criticized the idea mathematically unworkable and damaging to the economy. Again, damaging to the that's incredible. The economy. Let people go out there and earn for themselves without being stolen from. Disallow the government to steal from people who are going out there and earning for themselves. And that's going to harm the economy. Why? Because so much of the economy is based on welfare, I guess. People don't have spending money. People wouldn't have spending money. Why? Because money wouldn't be stolen from somebody else to give it around. The block grants would have to dry up. Oh, it would be remarkable. But again, it would have to be sunsetted because we are talking about a level of criminal dependency that is deadly. Very, very deadly. Okay? We talk about how there would be a major die-off of people in this country if we had an EMP attack that went on and all of critical infrastructure is offline and people on ventilators and, people who need one service or another who are completely reliant on modern day technology and everything else we have right now. We talked about all the scenarios in which why there would be massive die-offs. Turning off the money and just going back cold turkey to the way it should be would be the same kind of effect. There would have to be a sunsetting. But you would also need the political will that would outlast and outlive Donald Trump's presidency. Again, 4 years to change the mindset of everybody holding out their hand and expecting something to be there and equating that to something America. That's what makes us great. It's a good thing that we're talking to Alex Petkas tonight, because education is going to be a big part of what has to change and what has changed. Why people don't understand the Constitution, why all of our heroes have been taken away. And you can look back to civilizations, to empires like Rome and around the Mediterranean 1,000 years ago to really see again what makes a nation, what makes a civilization great, and what undercuts it, what takes it out at the knees. Well, it's one thing to say financial impropriety would take a country out, but it could keep going on and on and on, and people don't know why. It's inappropriate to live this way with the spending and the central banking and all that stuff. People don't understand why it's inappropriate. I was on Twitter today for a moment, and I saw, I hate it on the For You tab. I told you I'm not going to come up here and complain about the For You tab every night. But I hate what I see over there because they always put old tweets up. I'd rather them put fresh-ass tweets up there so I can be like one of the first people in the comments denigrating the OP. That would be amazing. But anyway, I saw this tweet from, I think, Tim Waltz. And Tim Waltz said something along the lines of, where is he? He said, Kamala Harris respects the Constitution and the rule of law. Donald Trump does not. And talking about the absolute state of education we have in this country, if the Constitution were respected by anyone, both the Democrat and Republican Party platforms would virtually disappear. Virtually disappear. Okay? All these people, Republicans included, pander to uneducated commie tards. It's just what it is. Now one side is far more devious and seditious than the other. No doubt about it. there is an objective difference between the two, at least what's on paper. Maybe what's going on in the boardrooms at the WWE, which is essentially the reality that we're living in. Perhaps that isn't that much different, but still, education. It's going to be a big part of tonight's show. Okay, thank you guys and gals. Will the income tax go away? Well, I don't know. Will God bless us this year, the next couple of years? How crazy is it going to get? That's a crazy I can sign up for any day of the week. We'll be right back with Alex Petkas. We're going to be jumping right into it. I love nights like tonight. BRB.
People should know when they're conquered.
Would you, Quintus? Would I?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with me during the warm-up. I hope you found your seats. I hope you're ready to go. I am ready to go. Ready to go, bro. Now, tonight's guest, Alex Petkas. He is the host of The Cost of Glory. It is a podcast that you really have to add into your subscriber list, especially if you love history. It's just something you got to do. It's a great thing, and I met him recently, and I'm so excited about tonight's show because I think it's going to be one of those things where he comes back again in the future. But let's just take it one show at a time. Alex Petkas is a writer, an entrepreneur, and the host of The Cost of Glory, a podcast celebrating Western civilization's eminent heroes. With a PhD in classics from Princeton University, he's a very smart guy. He transitioned from academia to alternative media. That is a hook in itself, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just last night we were talking about an incredible surge of homeschooling and people just wanting to get the hell out of the fixed track that is rusted and corrupt and all that stuff. He transitioned from academia to alternative media, where he empowers professionals and entrepreneurs through educational programs and leadership retreats. Alex's mission is to translate profound insights from Greco-Roman leaders and philosophers into actionable wisdom for contemporary achievers, fostering a deeper appreciation for historical greatness among today's innovators. Well, that's a mouthful. And Alex, welcome to the show. How have you been?
Good. It's great to see you, Frank.
Yes.
And I think you pretty much said it all right there.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said, and that's just that. It's very interesting. I want you to just start off right off the bat with your journey from academia to alternative media, because it's a very inspiring tale. People are looking for inspiration to do the same themselves, not even with their own personal professional and vocational paths if they want to be educators, but even just everyday American men and women who are looking for better alternatives for their children to be educated. Tell us about your story.
Well, I was always a bad student in high school and middle school. I was that kid sleeping in class through history class. And something kind of woke up in me when I was in high school. I ended up becoming an academic, sort of strangely to me. But a lot of what frustrated me as a kid in coming through the education system ended up frustrating me as an academic when I got into the tenure track, and I was a professor at a couple of institutions, and had a pretty good job and good colleagues, as far as things went. But I just the academics have gotten way more. They were always bureaucratic as long as I've been around, but I think it's gotten more kind of bureaucratic and stifling, and it's become a kind of monoculture. As I think everybody who pays attention now to anything is sort of aware. And I was in that for a while. I left in 2020, right at the height of COVID, and because I felt like as a classicist, so I was trained to study the Greeks and the Romans and the history and the culture, the literature, the language. We as classicists, especially in my book, we were failing to pass on what was great about what we studied and scaring away the next generation, especially young men. Like I saw the people that were the kind of younger version of myself just being chased out of the discipline for a variety of reasons. And I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to, because I got really excited about the Greeks and the Romans and the great achievements that they had wrought in history, and I wanted to share that with people through storytelling. And
is it that so much of the material and so much of the history is pro male protagonist? Obviously, the farther you go back, the greatest builders, mostly it's always going to be men building civilizations up, whether they are the architects, the great speakers, or even just the military leaders, the fighters, all that stuff. I mean, that is such a huge part of the ancient world. I can imagine that teaching that to people in a positive way, in a way that's not, I don't know. Do you have to teach that these days with almost like a sense of resentment, or you don't condone the way it used to be, that it was just very patriarchal and terrible? Because this is what I assume. When you say that young men are getting chased out, I just have to imagine that, it must be really hard to talk about the ancient world because it was very male dominated, and it's not a good or a bad thing necessarily, but people make it a bad thing these days.
Yeah, I think you kind of expressed it well. It's like anytime anybody does anything impressive in antiquity, especially in the sphere of war or politics, it's like we have to put an asterisk by it and say, but they were slave owners, but they were patriarchal, but don't admire them. And this really ramped up in 2015 and 2016 with, people started memeing about Trump as Caesar, and it was like the only non-cancelable response to that is, this is evil, he's Hitler, this is abuse of the ancient world. Nobody get excited, nobody draw any comparisons between anybody doing anything innovative or out of the box with the Greeks or Romans. And it was so it's funny, it was kind of reactionary, any hint of greatness or masculinity is just unacceptable. And I think that there's something, like in classics especially, this is really destructive, because it's kind of why it's there in Western civilization. I had a guy come on a retreat one time, and I was asking him how he got into my podcast and how he got into the Greeks and the Romans, because he was like a business major, frat boy, and now software sales. And he said to me, Alex, I realized kind of late in life, in his late 20s, nobody had ever told me this, but the Greeks and the Romans were the greatest men that ever lived. How was this secret kept from me? And well, the secret is being kept quite intentionally, I have to say, sort of, unintentionally, but there's a kind of culture of, I don't know, a feminization of the classics, which is kind of a longer story maybe we get into. Oh,
well, before I ask you about a little bit of a broader educational question, since you just brought up your friend's comment to you, the Spanish, the British, the Chinese, the dynasties of China, Russia, even the Ottomans. I mean, history is chock full of impressive dynasties and empires. Why is Rome always, even just, is it just good marketing? Why is Rome the gold standard? When we talk about ancient empires, I mean, there is nothing more glittery an object than talking about Rome.
Yeah, well, it is true that they were very good at marketing, and and part of this has to do with their culture of oratory, and they have this great literary culture. A lot of it is they're borrowing it from the Greeks. They're really good at storytelling because it's a competitive art in Rome and in Greece too. They're really good at portraying their own grandeur in their literary works and their monuments. But I think really for at least for the West, for like European history, the Romans really pulled it off, the whole power and politics thing, excuse me, better than anybody else had. And, you know, you look at the extent of the Roman Empire at its height and in like the first century AD, you know, roughly the time Jesus is alive, it stretches from Spain and France. Britannia gets conquered in the 50s, I think. So from Britain all the way to Kuwait under Trajan. The Romans don't really hold Mesopotamia for very long, but I mean, they encompass the entire Mediterranean Sea. It's Mare Nostrum, RC. And, ever since then, Europe has been, impressive as a collective, but fragmented politically. Every king has looked to Caesar and said, if only I had that kind of power. Mm-hmm. So, and Caesar is a great kind of illustration of this, just his name, right? Julius Caesar was just a man's name. And then it becomes the word for the emperor in the Roman world, right? Caesar is, render unto Caesar is not render unto Julius Caesar. It's Claudius, I think, that he's talking about, and on through history. The Kaiser is Caesar, the Tsar is Caesar. His name, the name of the Roman ruler, becomes synonymous with like king. It's like another word for king. Like the Romans pulled it off better than anybody else. But I think it's more than power and politics. There's also literature and architecture and a lot more reasons to that. But that's probably the main reason. They were huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, and over the course of this election season, which I feel has been going on since 2017. I feel like the 2024 election has been getting fought since 2017, and over the course of this election cycle in particular, especially this year, there's been plenty of talk again about the future of the Department of Education. Whether or not we can actually properly educate anybody without this hulking, inefficient government agency sucking out all the money from people who probably need it best to be kept in their homes. And throw it into terrible Common Core, centralized curriculum and whatever the hell else. But so I started thinking about that, and I wanted to ask you, what would be required learning for Alex Petkas if you were Caesar, and you can say this is how we are going to this is what we are going to focus on in our studies across the board, because just what you were saying before, when we were talking about modern parallels and even inversions. We're encouraging, whereas storytelling and venerating our cultural heroes was something that the Romans, were very, very big on. And I think that any society that grew up to be a robust success in history were very confident in themselves as well. We are not doing that. We're encouraging our children and as many generations at once to abandon our stories, to condemn our heroes. I have to imagine that you would start by putting an end to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I joke to people, I liked Betsy DeVos in charge of the Department of Education. I think her brother, Eric Prince, might do an interesting job there, because I think a lot of what needs to be done is just, clearing out. Well, let's not get distracted with that idea. So I think I would answer, what should we do with American education in general terms, probably with a story, but just preface this by pointing out that this idea of, tearing down statues of heroes, like ripping down a statue of not just of Robert E. Lee, but like of Jefferson or Lincoln, mm-hmm. right? Like people that are a lot less, right or Southern slave owner coded than Robert E. Lee are getting ripped down. It's like we can't have any heroes now. This is very connected with, I think, the reason that the Trump and Vance ticket is drawing way more men than the other option. And it's also connected with the breakdown of American education. So I think as a historian, I like to go back to deep causes of things. And I think that it really does merit it in the case of our education system. So American higher education, like somebody like the Columbia Teachers College, the Columbia School of Education, American higher ed kind of sets the tone for the K-12 because that's where you train the teachers. So I look to the problems with our education system in the problems with higher education first and foremost, and you can kind of understand the rest and fill in the blanks. But so like in the 18th century, the American colonies before the Revolution, there's a model of what education looks like, and it is very different from what we have now. Even higher education, there's a spirit of education that goes back to the Renaissance, and it's especially humanities education. We would call it that today. They would call it education in the classics, and basically from the Renaissance up until about the time of the founding fathers, the main thing that you would study as part of your education, like general education, is classics from a perspective of becoming a great speaker, becoming a great writer, becoming a great orator. The paradigm is rhetoric, is what they would call it. I mean, rhetoric has bad connotations today, but that's actually just the Greek word for the speaker's art. Rhetorike is the art of public speaking in Greek. The Greeks invented it. Excuse me. So you have this education system based on studying the great ancient works. Julius Caesar was a great writer. He wrote his history of the Gallic Wars. I just covered that on my show. You have Cicero, a great Roman orator. You've got Homer, the great poet. You've got Plutarch, the greatest of the biographers, and so on and so on. These great writers who are also great storytellers, that your education is basically designed to help you read these texts, typically in the original Greek and Latin, which takes a lot of work. And teaches you a lot about how language works and how English works, and helps your vocabulary. But you're trying to learn how they wrote so that you can write great things like they did. And in that process, you're learning about their political system. You're learning about their cultural system. You're learning about the wars that they fought, generalship. And you get this kind of general education in human affairs that's really designed for the kind of military aristocracy of Europe. And it was actually the educational model that the Romans themselves used. This is basically what the Greeks and Romans did. They preserved texts and stories of heroic figures and heroic events, and you're supposed to study them so that you can deploy these stories and tell your own stories and be effective in politics and have this like general understanding. And so you kind of learn this to admire greatness through this education system. So that's the model up until the 1800s, the 18th century, roughly. I could pause for questions if you got any.
Oh, no. I love it. The only thing that came, because I'm just sitting here listening and learning, but the one thing that came to mind when you're talking about the founding generation, or even just, not even necessarily them, but before and after them too, when you look at some of the greatest men and women in history, one of the things that you see, at least for a time, that was common for all of them, is to have studied and in many ways mastered ancient Greek and Latin as a language. And of course, that is because so much of the very foundational information that we know about ourselves, about early democracies and philosophy, everything like that, came from Latin and Greek. And I'm starting, and I think about now where obviously you have to be in top AP classes to be able to take a Latin class in high school. Like it's an elective if you're literally just top of your class and you're twiddling your thumbs, you need some kind of a challenge. And now we're getting a lot of articles now covering the generational issue of how nobody can write cursive anymore. So it may be necessary in the future for people to study cursive just to be able to translate foundational American texts. Because if a kid that only knows how to write and print is looking at the original Declaration of Independence, which is already such an ornate, it's hard for anybody to read it because it's so, beautiful. It looks like a work of art. But I just think that the steps that we're taking down is just so incredible, where Greek and Latin was almost like a standard, and now we're going to probably need cursive translators soon.
Yeah, and it's embarrassing because it's really not that hard to teach cursive, and yet we're failing to do it, and this has consequences. But this does connect to really interesting issues. So why does nobody know grammar these days? Because that's not how people have learned grammar throughout history. The way that people learned grammar in European culture was to learn Greek and Latin, and then you don't have to learn English grammar. You just get it. You can come up with the words, or French or German grammar, Italian, whatever the case may be, Polish. And in the early Spanish Empire in the Americas, like in the 17th century, when they taught Latin, they actually didn't call it Latin. They called it grammar. They called it grammar class, just learning Latin. Because that's how you learn Spanish grammar. You don't teach them what a noun is in Spanish and make them diagram sentences. You just teach them Latin. Teach them how to read Cicero or the Bible or whatever the case may be in Latin. The Bible was written in Greek, but it was translated into Latin. And you could save yourself a lot of boring, tedious effort teaching kids grammar that they're going to forget because they don't anyway. So that's a longer story. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the interesting things for me about it's kind of a misconception about the classics that it is coded or needs to be coded as sort of like backward-looking, traditional, stuck in the past. That actually I actually gave a talk recently on this at Hillsdale College on this idea of Greco-futurism, which is this kind of meme aesthetic that I'm starting to see more on Twitter. A friend of mine coined that term, but I like it. But it's basically this idea that the cultures that look back at the past a lot, especially the deep past, especially like the ancients, often that comes from a sort of searching for inspiring models of greatness because you want to aspire to something that everybody today is not imagining. You want to aspire to something even greater. So I think that you really see this in the founding generation of America, which is just Greece and Rome obsessed culture. I mean, these are the most obnoxious Rome bros in history. And
I think I know. I think I know. I think I know the
progressive.
I think I know the meme you're talking about. It's actually a very, I don't know. It's a very cozy category. It reaches down deep into just basic, masculine working out kind of traits, but everything is warrior like from like the, I don't know. We're talking first century kind of stuff, and I don't know.
You think like the Dune movies and like very clean aesthetics. It's like terraforming planets on the Alpha Centauri system and spaceships that have like classical architecture on them, and it's so cool, right? Like these things aren't weird together. They fit perfectly, So I think that's we need to kind of emphasize that more in education. That like studying the classics can be very progressive in the sense of like the best sense of progressive, like JFK's we're going to go to the moon speech, progressive, which is that kind of the spirit that America was founded on. Like, let's go west, let's do this, let's build a great nation. I think it's like Alexander Hamilton energy, who's another Greece and Rome obsessed guy for sure.
So then let's talk about the heroes of the past. Let's focus on them in particular for a little bit. Who do you think is the most worthy of studying first and foremost? I mean, there's Julius Caesar. I mean, we talk about Cicero. There's all of the most important people whose names, even if we don't know anything that they've done, their names are so popular that they're all over the place. But from the depths of your study, who do you think is the most worthy of studying, if for no other reason than they are chronically overlooked?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for, let's say, the founding fathers, a guy like Hamilton, a guy like Machiavelli, a guy like Rousseau, another sort of misunderstood figure, I think is more interesting than people give him credit for. You know, the place to go for the best heroes, the best ancient heroes of Greece and Rome is Plutarch. And Emerson calls Plutarch a Bible for heroes. Excuse me. So Plutarch is this philosopher who lives in the 1st century, 2nd century AD, rough contemporary of Seneca, a little earlier than Marcus Aurelius. Actually, Plutarch's grandson was a philosopher advisor to Marcus Aurelius. And, it's around this time of St. Paul. Plutarch is Greek, living in the Roman Empire. He lives in Greece. He visits Rome to do some research. But he wrote this classic work that's it's odd. It's fallen out of fashion these days because of part 2 of the kind of downfall of American education story that we'll get to in a little bit, but this is worth dwelling on. So Plutarch is a mega bestseller in the 18th century. He's like the most popular ancient author by far, like second only to the Bible, in a society that's obsessed with the Greeks and Romans. He's more popular than Plato or Homer or Virgil or Cicero or even Caesar. It's Plutarch's parallel lives. He's got this collection of 48 biographies of the people that were, in his opinion, the most admirable or interesting of all the great figures of antiquity. And so he writes parallel lives, which means he compares a Greek and a Roman with each other and sort of gives a moral evaluation of them at the end of telling their lives. The most famous pair is Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great, kind of the two greatest figures that each civilization produced. He's always comparing a Greek and a Roman. And Plutarch's biography of Caesar was very influential on William Shakespeare. He basically based his play, Julius Caesar, on Plutarch's biography of Caesar and a couple of others that are around Caesar, like Brutus and Cicero and Mark Antony. Shakespeare was a huge reader of Plutarch. So I think Plutarch is he's the basis of my podcast, The Cost of Glory. So I'm basically trying to take his biographies, which are pretty concise, actually, 60 pages, 30 pages, pretty like digestible portraits of the great figures. Some other names that might be familiar from Plutarch are Pericles, Cicero, Demosthenes, the two greatest orators, Solon and Lycurgus, the founder of the Spartan state. And there's a lot of names like that. And even the more obscure ones are incredible. I actually began my podcast with the pair that I think are the least well-known, Sertorius and Eumenes, who are unbelievably amazing guys. Sertorius, the greatest Roman rebel. Eumenes is Alexander the Great's secretary, who ends up becoming a kind of warlord, like uber general after Alexander dies. I mean, incredible story. So they're all amazing, but I think for much of Western history, for like, say the generation of the U.S. founders, it was those guys who were the kind of the canon of great men, Plutarch's heroes.
Somebody's got to turn this into a graphic novel. Do you know anybody that's taking this and like and turning it into a series of really well done comics?
If you or anybody knows of such a person, send them my way. I'd be very interested. It needs to be done. I mean, frankly, we should have like 8-part Netflix series on each one of these guys. I mean, they're all
as you're giving me the
colorful
thumbnail sketch of all of them. I'm like, damn, I want to see a series on that guy. I'd love to read this. Oh man, I can imagine the illustration on this one. How about this? Because we're always talking about even maybe misapplying and mischaracterizing of people in the front, and maybe the misuse of historical figures just to be able to denigrate a person or to create some kind of a I don't know, a politically expedient a weapon, a cudgel. But you were talking about Donald Trump before. We're talking about Trump being labeled, oh, he wants to be Caesar. And of course, it's been 10 years of he wants to be Hitler. It seems like there's only two people, if you're talking about mainstream media spaces, educational spaces, any kind of socio-political analysis that's being done. You never hear about people like Plutarch. You never hear about any of these incredible stories. It's only how can we invoke the most amount of emotion in the least amount of syllables as possible. Hitler, there's 2 syllables, and Caesar, there's another 2 syllables, and they can only be negative connotations. From your personal,
you want to get them to activate as few brain cells as possible.
Absolutely,
too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just got to be like it has to be a gasp, and the interaction has to end right there. But for all of the comparison between Trump and Caesar, is there anybody in the Greco-Roman world that you actually would compare Trump to that you think would actually be fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think a much more interesting parallel is actually Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus from an earlier period of Roman history. So, and also Gaius Marius. So I'll get to both of them. They kind of, their stories intertwine. So I got to set the scene a little bit so you can appreciate who Gracchus is. And these are all characters in Plutarch's lives. I already did a biography of Marius on my show. I haven't done the Gracchi brothers yet, but we'll get there soon. So basically, Rome is by the mid 2nd century BC. They've gone from a regional power, a city-state that dominates a kind of mid-chunk around the kneecap of Italy, to becoming a Mediterranean-wide power player. Like probably the not entirely unchallenged, but they're the greatest power in the Mediterranean by that point. By say 150, 140 BC, they had this incredible bloody series of wars with Carthage, Hannibal. This is the Punic Wars. This is the Battle of Cannae. All of this amazing trials that the Romans faced, annihilation against the Carthaginians. They won. That was in the 3rd century BC. And then they defeat these kings of Greece in the east, Antiochus and Perseus, and the remnants of Alexander's Macedonian kings. So Rome is like dominant, right? But they've got this kind of creates a new problem for them, because so Rome at this point is a republic, not what we would call an empire. Well, not what we would call the Roman Empire, like the monarchy with an emperor, right? They've got consuls and praetors. They're elected. They change every year. They've got a healthy plebeian assembly. The people can vote for laws. They've got a senate that has real power, and so on. And so they've conquered the Mediterranean, much of it, and all this wealth is flowing in. All of these slaves are flowing in. All of this gold and statues and paintings and luxuries are flowing in. And one of Rome's problems was the way that they conquered and the way that they administered these foreign provinces is they have guys that take 1, 2, 3-year tours of duty. These are almost entirely composed of aristocrats, blue bloods, and they plunder a little while, get really rich, come back to Rome, win some elections, pass on their wealth to their sons win elections. There's this growing inequality. All the wealth of empire is really flowing to just a few people. And there's also equestrian businessmen doing government contracting. We don't need to get into that, but essentially you've got a Rome getting way richer, and the kind of the fighting men of the armies are getting squeezed out of land in Italy. And so this is kind of the backdrop of, one of the problems this creates that Tiberius Gracchus perceives is, and everybody perceives, is the nobles are getting kind of soft because it's starting to get easy, right? the Roman armies are so much superior to any of these little barbarian tribes that they're battling. The Roman politicians from the aristocratic class it's easy to win a war. It's easy to win in politics when you have this incredible, gigantic financial advantage over your rivals. They're kind of getting soft and corrupt, and they don't really have a lot of incentive to address growing wealth inequality. And so I'll read you this passage maybe from Plutarch's Life of Gracchus. It's brief, that kind of paints the scene for you. So he talks about how the Romans are winning land from their neighbors or from peoples that they conquered, and it's public land that's supposed to be distributed amongst the soldiers, amongst the kind of poorer and middle classes of Rome. But the rich are finding ways to kind of come up with fake names and control it through their fake aliases, and then they eventually just give up pretending and say, we just own this land. Who cares? What are you going to do about it? And so there's Tiberius Gracchus, this famous scene. He says, this is Plutarch, his brother Gaius in a certain pamphlet has written that as Tiberius was passing through Tuscany on his way to Numantia, so he's on his way to Spain, actually, passing through northern Italy, and observed the dearth of inhabitants in the country, and that those who tilled its soil or tended its flocks there were barbarian slaves. He then first conceived the public policy, which was the cause of countless ills to the two brothers. However, the energy and ambition of Tiberius were most of all kindled by the people themselves, who posted writings on porticos, house walls, and monuments, calling upon him to recover for the poor the public land.
It's a populist movement.
It is. It's very much a populist movement. And it's important to note here that Tiberius Gracchus is super aristo. Like, he is elite of the elite. His dad was a consul. His mom was the daughter of Scipio Africanus, who defeated Hannibal. I mean, he's a super top politician. He doesn't have to do this, right? But he sees an opportunity. Like, these people, there's a real problem. And, to be fair, if you solve a problem for a lot of people, that's a great way to build a career as a politician, right? And that's all fair. But so, long story short, he finds a way to channel this popular kind of frustration at a lot of people being left out. And what do you know? The aristocrats kind of lock elbows, and actually, literally, they set up a what they call it, military martial law one day in the forum. They cook up some thread about he's trying to make himself a king. The Romans hate the idea of kings. Goes back to their early political founding. And it's all nonsense, but they basically say Tiberius Gracchus is trying to seize the state like a tyrant. We have to stop him. And so the senators all march out from the Senate House, and they bust up benches, and they club him to death. They club his supporters to death, and they assassinate this guy in broad daylight in the forum. And so perished all those who would try to challenge the Roman nobles. So I think this is a really interesting connection. Like, he's one of them, right? That explains why they're so indignant at him, kind of turning his back on the nobility and championing the poor, which is something that, really threatens their interests.
Oh, jeez. I guess there really is nothing new under the sun. I mean, we think about the heroes in the ancient world. I was thinking about this earlier on today when I was just looking through all of your work, and questions and concepts were bubbling in my head, and I wondered about asking you about maybe just even the concept of celebrity status in Rome. What did it mean? We know that some of the more popular gladiators were like essentially like the Arnold Schwarzeneggers of the ancient world. But what did it mean for somebody like these brothers, Gracchus? And when I think about that, because obviously when we bring in the Donald Trump and the modern parallels here, there's always been a large part of it being celebrity driven. That's the only real reason why Donald Trump has been able to do what he's done to wrangle television ratings in his. He was very, very well equipped, and very well trained, like no other presidential candidate ever had before, with all the time he spent building ratings in television for the decades prior to, his candidacy. But, that was another question I was going to ask you about there, too, is, aside from celebrity and all this other stuff and populist movements of the past, how did heroes of the ancient world, we hear about them, fighting external threats on the battlefield, or even mythical encounters when we talk about, the cultural stories and all that stuff, mythology. But how did they fight against their own cultural and political degradation, political corruption? And obviously, in the long run, the empire collapsed. But was there any prime ancient examples of there actually being a swamp that was drained? Is this the closest that the Rome's swamp ever got to being drained, or did we get closer still?
Yeah, well, the story of the attempts to drain the Roman swamp is an 80-year-long story that ends with Augustus, really. But Julius Caesar's a big figure. Well, let's hit a couple of those points. So I think that for celebrity, this is a really interesting distinction between the Romans and us. So they do have the theater at Rome, but they're very suspicious of the theater because it's, first of all, it's a Greek invention. The whole idea of tragedy and comedy, those are Greek words, those are Greek concepts, and the Romans never build a permanent theater. They have these festivals where they'll build bleachers for theatrical productions for I think it's like the Apolline Games or something. There's some kind of god that they honor with theater, but they build these wooden bleachers with fine paintings, and then after the end of the festival they destroy it all. They tear it all down. Maybe they keep the paintings, I don't know, but basically they don't have a permanent theater because they see the theater as, well, one of the threats that they were very attuned to is this idea of the more people know your name, that gives you a kind of power in society. And so there's a harsh sort of prejudice against actors. Like any actor woman is by definition like on the level of like a courtesan. Maybe not a cheap prostitute, but certainly an expensive prostitute. Like you're basically kind of selling your body is the idea. You can't be a respectable Roman matron if you're also an actress. They're usually Greeks, foreigners, slaves. It's kind of the same thing with actors. It's almost viewed as a form of prostitution for the Romans. And that's, I think, partly because they realize there's a threat potentially that you have to neutralize. You can't let these people use the stage to elevate their own status in society. So that's something very different. Okay. Go ahead.
No. Continue, please.
Well, so then what do you have if you want to build your career otherwise? There's war. I think that it's hard to imagine for us how powerful a military victory is for the Romans because their politicians are their generals. The consuls are first and foremost, commanders in chief, leaders of the army. And so that's very important. Kind of the celebrity status that a general has is a lot like a combination of, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Douglas MacArthur or Patton or something. When
you describe this here too, and we're always trying to bring back the ancient world into the modern world to see where we are in the life cycle of our own civilization and what might be on track, what might be completely flipped, when we had it better and when we had it right and what we might be getting wrong right now. You think about how actors and actresses are real. I mean, we're being run into the ground by a psycho drama club. I mean, we are talking about the revenge of the thespian nerds. I mean, that is what is running the show. There's really rhetoric is just dead there too because it's all histrionics and crying and it appeals to emotion. There's no substance to anything. It really is just like high school drama club and it's refreshing to hear that at least at some point in history, those people were relegated to the stage and said, you just stay right there, please. We'll take care of everything else. We don't want you to have to make decisions on how to run the sewer system.
Yeah. It's the kids would call it fake and gay, I think is what they're
That's
saying.
exactly what it is. Yes, that's what the kids call it.
Yeah, so I think it wouldn't hurt to get some of that energy back. And there are some great people in Hollywood. They're, I think, a minority, a substantial minority. And there's a lot of competence that goes, a lot of those people are really talented at certain things, but being talented at politics or war is a different thing. There's an overlap, but there's a different thing. I mean, Trump also built, billion-dollar businesses. I mean, he knows how to operate in the real world too. And he's yeah. So I think that we could learn a lot from that example for sure. And maybe we're moving in that direction. I don't know. Hollywood is losing a whole lot of credibility very quickly.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that last night. We were talking about that. There was a Zero Hedge article. An article on Epic Times that was syndicated by Zero Hedge, and we were talking about the rise of humility and what happened to the old world of media, how they're trying to really grappling, and also the political class, where they're grappling with people's loss of interest and loss of belief in their fakeness and their lies, and how in its place is just this budding new collection of parallel markets for everything. You're an example of parallel markets of not only media and history, but education. And education popped up last night too. That how really uncomfortable the mainstream education, the institution of education in America is about how many millions and more children are starting to pick up their education at home. They're becoming homeschooled and trying to write it off as an aberration, or it's all about because parents are afraid of gun violence when it's really about the curriculum. So there's so many things that are happening right now that have killed celebrity in the traditional sense, or at least the sense that we knew it in the 90s when, a new Schwarzenegger movie came out and we were all there online to watch True Lies. And then it's just, it's what comes in its place. Now, here's one thing I'd love to throw at you, because we've talked about military, we've talked about populist movements, but from a philosophical standpoint, what about Stoicism? Because, I mean, I've got a copy of Meditations right here. I keep it here at the studio. Whenever I have 20 minutes, I'll just turn to any page and just start reading. What do you think about the somewhat renewed interest in Stoicism as a philosophy in general and also in practice? Because I know people are dipping into that, and I find that very, very comforting. I think if we were a lot more stoic, the world would be a much better place. But is there anything about it you would you have mixed feelings on?
I think the whole Stoic movement is great. Honestly, to me, the Stoics are for a lot of people, they're a kind of gateway drug into the classics because you realize, a guy like Marcus Aurelius was maybe made of a different kind of stuff than we are, or a figure like Cato the Younger, who is admired by Marcus, or a Stoic author like Seneca. Stoics have a lot to teach us about emotional control, and living according to nature is a big part of Stoicism, which they share with a lot of the ancient philosophies. Plutarch is he's my guy right now, and he's not a Stoic, but there's a lot of overlap. One of the places that he would differ from the Stoics is maybe in his belief in the power of narrative. Like the Stoics don't talk a whole lot about how storytelling, about like how heroes can, form your moral character. Seneca talks about this a little bit, but they have a kind of they're very suspicious of the emotions, and stories are they really work on your emotions. They like use all of your your emotional faculties to kind of pull you in a certain direction, almost subconsciously. And Plutarch loves that part of Stoicism. He thinks it's really therapeutic to to write and also to read stories of like great men and great achievements. So in general, I think it's great, and I hope people just realize that Marcus Aurelius, there's a whole basket of figures that are as impressive. Maybe they don't write meditations to themselves in all cases, but there's a lot of really memorable sayings, a lot of wisdom from these really accomplished guys.
Yeah, it's something I've seen a lot. You're talking about those kind of throwback meme formats of old ancient marble statues, and everybody starting to work out a little bit more, take themselves a little bit more seriously, clean up their act, go back to church. All this stuff is starting to pop up again, and Stoicism has been a big part of that, especially for me too. Now, if you watch me 5 nights a week, then you know that I'm not a very stoic guy. I'm trying so hard. I love learning, but all you got to do is play a 20-second clip from one moron or another, and I'm flying off the handle. It's just, I don't know. I understand I got a lot of work to work on, but man, oh man, it makes a lot of sense. And to be able to achieve that level of self-control, I just can imagine extrapolating that out to even just 1/5 of the world's population. And it would create a civilian population that I feel would be so far less susceptible to the emotional manipulation of the histrionic thespians out there. I mean, this is a way to really neutralize the only game. They're one-trick ponies. They just want people outraged over nothing. Can you imagine Kamala Harris and Joe Biden going out there and rolling out one of their their anti whatever screeds for a bunch of Stoics? The people would fall asleep. They wouldn't go riot. They would fall asleep. I would love to see people armed with that a little bit more. But then again, I have a lot of work to do myself.
There's also the aspect, I think there's a kind of bad Stoicism that circulates today that's kind of denatured, and I think that there is, and I don't think it's true Stoicism, and it's easy to kind of avoid that if you're alert. But I think there's one of the reasons that you see a lot of pop stars maybe talking about Stoicism. It almost seems like the media is kind of pushing a certain version of Stoicism that is everything's fine. You can't change anything. Just be okay with it. Don't have emotional reactions. And there are some things in the world, like real injustice and falsehood, that you should have an emotional response, that you should like try to tear it down. I think there is a kind of like almost a Buddhist Zen fake version of Stoicism. There's really about kind of trying to get the masses to be okay with the fact that everything's going to hell.
Yeah, black pill. It's a black, almost like a black pilled kind of. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah.
But I don't think that's the truth. I don't think that's true Stoicism. I don't think that Marcus would really want us to be adopting that position.
Yeah. So. Well, then that brings me to a really a big final question, or at least one of the last ones I can come up with right now, and that is, every once in a while, we're talking about the life cycle of a civilization. That life cycle, it comes up on the show. The rise and fall of empires, rise and fall of nations, and all that, and all the reasons why it would all come apart. But the one thing that we always settle on is how, even though fashion changes, ancient history always applies to the modern day, because we're the same species. We have the same tendencies, the same motivations, what have you. We're actually only a couple of people, 10 people removed from, the year 1000, 10 people who lived 100 years each, and all of a sudden we're in year 1024. That's incredible to think about. It's not a movie. It's not a parallel universe. We are the latest chapter of everything you've talked about. The Gracchus brothers, everything. But the question I got for you is this. I always say that there's one X factor with our go around, with the life cycle of our civilization. One thing that we can't account for in the past, and that is our level of technology, especially when it comes to communication and to information sharing. We are so decentralized right now. It is it's a joker card. It's a wild card. Do you think, based on your your knowledge of the ancient world and your living in the current one, do you think that our high-tech society will become a lifeline for us in times of trouble or hasten our demise?
Well, I think that this is really, this is one of the for me why it's really important to study history, especially for our leaders, because I sincerely believe that it could be either way. Like I do think that I see the kind of doomerism pill of AI is going to destroy us or something. Crypto is going to make the nation state implode. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But whatever's coming, like we're gonna need seriously talented leadership if we're gonna come through it the better. I tend to be an optimist about technology, or at least, an optimist about, we have the choice to use it for good. Directing some of our technological prowess toward increasing the amount of energy available to us through whether it's nuclear or better solar or fission or fusion, sending people to Mars and planets, like having actual goals that are positive sum rather than zero sum, like conquering each other, because we've run out of land to conquer, seems like a good way to go, like to conquer the technological frontier rather than, uh, wars of aggression and imperialism seems like a positive outlet. So I think that whether or not you like technology, the people who harness it are the ones that have power. So we should try to, be friends with them and make sure that they're getting well educated and studying the greats. And I think that starts with improving the education system. And maybe this is a time to kind of close the loop on where things went wrong with American education and why I think virtues kind of left the building in education. So like if you look at, okay, one of the ways that Gracchus is, for example, and his brother rose to power without extreme military accomplishments under their belt was through oratory, was through learning the art of public speaking, like we were talking about. And this is the education system that we had up until, let's say, about around 1800. But in the U.S., we borrowed this model from Germany that was kind of a nice idea that came about in the late 18th century, that the university should be not dedicated to human flourishing or training up the diplomats and orators of tomorrow, but it should be an institution for producing knowledge, for objective knowledge, for producing kind of experts who bear that knowledge, who have PhDs, who specialize so narrowly in a topic that they can add to the kind of great library of human knowledge. And this happened in Germany first, and Enlightenment Germany. It's kind of this Enlightenment idea that we're going to fuel human progress by creating more knowledge. This is when history sort of gets turned into a science rather than like an art of passing on certain character qualities to the next generation, which I think was what history more was, in this old kind of art of oratory rhetoric model that you get from the Renaissance to the founding fathers.
There's a lot more gatekeeping going on, and and again the tyranny of the experts starts rising.
Exactly, and this is directly the force that produces socialism. This idea of a state run not by leaders, not by high agency men of action, but by depersonalized institutions staffed by interchangeable experts with PhDs. And they have, that they're interchangeable because a PhD is a PhD is a PhD. I mean, this is the whole premise of like modern administrative state. That's kind of what the university is designed to produce. If you look at what it actually produces, like it's, some very high agency people make it through, but on the whole, it's kind of designed to produce talented, smart conformists who would staff a modern bureaucracy that a king might either rely on to run the oops, looks like I'm going to switch cameras here. That, is that better?
Yeah, I got you.
That a king might rely on to staff a modern tax bureaucracy, or might end up finding himself overcome by a cadre of bureaucrats, right?
Well, and that brings us right back to the beginning of our talk tonight with what is there waiting for somebody in the modern day school system, especially the university systems, where what are you allowed to teach, in what way, and who's even allowed to teach, just based on what? I mean, it's not at this point. I can start seeing it just from the people who call into the show, that who are still teaching out there, or are in other very politicized jobs at this point. A lot of jobs and professions have been politicized just over the last 10 years alone. And they all say the same thing. It used to be, bad enough where you have nepotism and some kind of it's who you know, not what you know kind of situation. And now it's literally, it's gotten down to the point of, how you were born. Nepotism obviously is always going to be out there, but the way the hurdles that people have to pass over have become so much more shallow and ideologically driven in a physical sense. That's incredible. Identitarianism.
Yeah, and the fact that the education system got so systematized, like, it wasn't always bad. Like, I had some good teachers, right? When I was in high school, they weren't all bureaucrats, but once you have a centralized education system, even though a lot is left to states, like, less and less is being left to local agency, and it's more and more is just the centralizing tendency of the Department of Education to want to call the shots, the kind of education industrial complex wants to send their people in to teach things their way, because they want to form students in a way that, essentially will conform to their own ideology, which is, at this point, cultural Marxism for the most part. Like, Chris Rufo's really blown the lid off of this. It's really true. Like, even if people don't admit it to themselves, like, the dominant ideology of, I started getting really annoyed at diversity, this word diversity, when I was in college, like, nearly 20 years ago. It's like, why do I hate this so much? I hate this irrationally. Like, I sense something kind of malign about this. And, like, I don't know, I was kind of clueless at the time, but there's this whole kind of evil identitarian, like, kind of enforced mediocrity ideology that really gets shoved down the pipes with a lot of force, right into the ears of students from K-12 and on up. And
it's a mediocrity that by law would never allow, and it is protected with impunity, no doubt about it, but would never allow a educator or a school system to really go at a responsible depth into history. It's not as black and white as modern political garbage needs it to be. It needs to be us versus them. It needs to be broken down from victims and oppressors. There's no gray areas. There's no redeemable senses of masculinity anywhere, apparently. It's just really all about paying the piper every step of the way.
The whole narrative of the modern left is that everything before 1960 was bad and evil. Don't ask too many questions. It was evil. You don't need to ask questions. Just watch a movie about it, and you'll see that it's all evil, and they're all rapists and patriarchal. They're all corrupt, and it's really boring, and it's no wonder, like, everybody sleeps through history, especially young men don't care about history class. They get it from now, thank God, they're getting it from the internet. I mean, that's a mixed bag too, because there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, but at least they can go read books and find out for themselves. And they're kind of, I think a lot of the scales are falling from people's eyes now, which creates a lot of chaos, but on the whole, I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. So listen, you're writing, you're podcasting, you're a public advocate for a return to classical education. What else is in the grand scheme for you in the future? Like what path are you walking right now? What's your bigger goal?
Well, I left academia because I wanted to sort of reform education by creating something that was a better alternative, and I'm in the process of doing that. I run retreats through my podcast, through the Cost of Glory, men's retreats. I'm really interested in this idea of recreating single gender spaces, which seem to have been completely wiped off of the face of the American earth. Like there aren't elk clubs anymore. There's no all schools are mixed gender.
Boy Scouts.
All Boy Scouts is now, and Boys and Girl Scouts, right? It's and so I'm trying to do this in a small way with men's retreats for kind of professionals that I've run in Rome, and we're starting one in Texas in January, and in Greece probably this next summer. But I think there's a whole lot of possibilities for connecting with this ancient tradition of becoming a better public speaker through the study of history, because history should be not just something that we study to understand in a room alone, but something that we share, that we kind of storytell with each other, and we trade quips and insights and anecdotes. And it's like part of a kind of public culture that tends to code very masculine. At least men have a certain way of getting together and talking about history amongst themselves that just feels really energizing, and that's kind of the energy we try to tap into on our retreats. So that's a big concern of mine, is to kind of recreate spaces where men can kind of engage in fun, friendly banter that's both mutually encouraging, but also a little competitive, like you're trying to one up the other guy. I think that's kind of healthy, getting guys together alone to just talk about stuff. And a lot of male bonding it's not about like sharing your feelings and all of your struggles and all of your problems. And I mean, that can happen too, but I think a lot of guys just want men's spaces back. So that's something I'm interested in exploring and offering in some of my programming.
Especially non-physical. I mean physical spaces, because non-physical spaces that's why so many guys game. Whoever let's get together. I'll meet you on PlayStation tonight. Let's play this and that. It's whatever the hell. It's very, very important for the health of a society. Everybody needs a little place, and there's a reason why this balance has been upset for some reason, and or there's a reason why this balance has been upset. Period. But Alex, this has been a wonderful, what I hope is the first talk of at least a small anthology of talks. We have to do more and more of this, because the ancient world is a very large one. We've only scraped a scrape of the surface. Is there anything I have here? I have costofglory.com. I have that linked in the description of the episode. Anything else that people need to know about your work?
Yeah, well, we'll have to come back and talk about Gaius Marius sometime, who's another really interesting Trump parallel, but it's a very long story, so we'll have to come back. So if you want to find out more about what I'm about, go check out maybe an episode on the Cost of Glory podcast. It's available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I do 3-part biographies, so you might like the series I did kind of recently on Crassus, the richest man in Rome, or Pompey, the kid butcher. Start with episode 1. But if you're interested in exploring this issue of how the classics can make you a better public speaker, which I think is a lot of the essence of it, I did put together a free email course that goes into some of the principles there. It's if you go to costofglory.com/gift, I put together I call it the authoritative speaker's guide. To speak with more authority by drawing on the great authorities of history. This is the concept there. So yeah, you'll be seeing me around. I'm trying to get more active and online now that I've wrapped up some other projects. But it's been a lot of fun, Frank.
Oh, it's been great meeting you, and I'm glad that we spent this time together. This was a wonderful episode. I really just feel so comfortable with these episodes, and I feel like I learned a lot. And there you go. That's it. Thank you so much for the time, Alex.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
All right, see you soon. There he goes, Alex Petkas. And now, you know what the big thing is? We just spoke with a PhD for an hour, And it's not far off. Not far off. You're not really far off to being able to make the connections from then and now. You just need a little nudge. That's why, getting together and having those conversations, people draw connections from all over the place. We can draw lines from A to B to C to wherever, back to A again, and it makes for a really illuminating evening. And it's cathartic too. It's really something else to keep yourself connected to something that seems so far away that it happened on another planet. Anyway, we're going to come back. I'm going to take your calls. I have a couple of things we can look at, but I would love to hear what you thought about tonight's talk. If anything came up for you that you'd like to bring up, it doesn't matter what it is. We got a half hour left together, and then, well, maybe a little bit less than a half hour, because I am going to be replacing this audio unit over here. Hopefully that cleans up some of the signal mess that I've been experiencing. Want that out of the way because there's other things that have to be done in this room over the next couple of weeks that I'm very excited for. All right, be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly. Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch. Quite frankly. With Frank.
Are you?
Ron Paul just tweeted not too long ago, and he took that an article about the no income tax and just funding the government through tariffs. Ron Paul took a screenshot of that and said, now this would really make America great again. That is the kind of stuff that would be incredible. So my, oh my. Let's see here. What else we got? Where we got? Let's see. What was this? Video. Destruction of Trump mail-in ballots caught on camera in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This shocking footage must be investigated immediately. If true, this could be a serious threat to the integrity of the election. It's becoming clearer that this is the only way Democrats think that they can win this election. It's been deleted, though. People are buzzing about a video. I don't know. Everybody's on edge right now. Anything can go viral at any moment. You got to be careful. Everybody's got to be careful. Okay, so let's see. Into the grab bag, or into the super chats we go as I open up the lines. 914-595-6953. It's still second nature. I've been saying that number for a long time. 914-200-0269. It's on the screen right now. 914-200-0269. Jay Britt says, great guest tonight, Frank. Where were the teachers like Alex when I was struggling through school? Thank you for introduction. They're out there. It's a big country. There are plenty of amazing teachers out there. There are patriotic teachers out there. They are, and wherever they are doing a service to the planet. They're doing a service to humanity. They're doing a service to this country, whether this country and this country's government, I should say, in its current form rejects them or not. They are out there. I would just say, whoever the hell you are, always assess your situation. Where are you doing the most good? You know, if you are just being drowned out, if you have a foothold in a school that needs a lot of help and you know you're getting through to kids, I mean, do whatever you got to do. Robin McCutcheon is, behind enemy lines, but she just digs in and she does what she's got to do. But there's a lot of you out there who are coming up, who feel that vocation to teach, who know that there's a greater story to be told about our time here on this earth, and it's going to have a great impact on the mentality that we have going forward, because it gives people hope to know where we came from, to know how far it's all come for the species. So I'd say just keep in mind If that's your vocation, if that's your calling, there are more than 100,000 ways to skin a cat in this respect, and we need more independent educators out there. We need you guys out there. There are so many homeschool parents. There are so many parents. I would love. I gotta find tutors. Anybody that was offering up, hey, I am a teacher. I left the school system. I don't like it. I don't want to take this or that. I don't want to inject this or that. And I don't necessarily like the way that the school is culturally. But I'm not leaving the area, and I know many of you aren't either. And I want to give you all a nice opportunity to have some homeschooling, maybe 4 or 5 people. You just promote yourself. I got to find it. That's amazing. Just put it out there. There are millions of children that are looking for fresh, new approaches to education. So I can't wait to see all the ingenuity in that field, because you have to do it. You got to innovate. So, Stowe Stoop says, great guest tonight, Frank. Thank you, my good man. Thank you for showing up. Vic says, thank you so much for saying hi to my mom, Diane, last night. Diane, she went absolutely bananas. She's 68 years old and very shy, so it was hilarious. When the show ended, I subscribed her to the postcard option on Patreon. That's the Diane that showed up? Oh, boy. I think it's the only Diane that's in the postcard. By the way, we only have one postcard sponsorship slot left on Patreon. Grab it, get yourself some coffee, and get ready for some wonderful, cheery holiday grams showing up every month. Starting with this month, you're going to get a Halloween postcard from me. But Diane, every time I see Diane's name there on the postcard, I'm going to scream it. Scream Diane now. You'll see. Who's this? Oral Hershiser. Really? Oral Hershiser has sent me a tip. He's a Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher for a long time. Frank, you're simply wrong. The Dodgers need this title more than you. You proved my point by dismissing their 2020 championship. Hey, you still got a ring just because it was at the tail end of a stupid 60-day season where most teams don't even get started with their championship run until after the 60th game of 162 games. You know, people who are at the top of the pack at 60 games, quite a few of them end up near the bottom of the division when everything ends between just going, I don't know, not hitting, all your pitching implodes, everybody's injured, whatever the hell it is. There's so many reasons why the season starts after 60 games. My gosh. Can you imagine all the championships the Yankees would have won if they went to the playoffs at 60 games before they all got beat up? Okay, let's see here. Durkistan says, let's see here. Lifelong Dodgers fan here, born 4 months before the 81 series. I've been waiting a long time for this matchup to happen. Best of luck to you, Frank. Think blue. Well, navy blue, perhaps. That's what I'll be thinking about. But best of luck to you, too. Honestly, I'm so excited. I don't make any guarantees, and who knows? It's baseball. Anything can happen. And it could just be, this could be an amazing week, and I can't wait for it. And the fact that I have a chance to go to Game 5, that's going to be wonderful. But if you guys are interested at all, and I know that Ken Burns is a freak with a strange hairpiece, but you got to watch like the first 4 or 5 episodes of the baseball documentary, up to and including the baseball capital of the world. I think it's like episode 5, 6, whatever the hell, baseball capital of the world. It's like 1950s. The 1950s, especially the Yankees, the New York Giants, and the Dodgers just destroying each other. Well, the Yankees doing a lot of the destroying all throughout the 50s, creating the ghosts, the ghostly, amazing glow, the ghostly glow around this matchup that's about to start tomorrow night. Yankees and Dodgers. It's going to be great. Too bad it has that silly L.A. on it. L.A. on the hat. What a terrible hat, L.A. But, you know, they've been in the L.A. Dodgers for, I don't know, since the late 50s. What are you going to do? It's a Subway series, though. Don't worry about it. All right, let's see. Over on Rumble. Jay Semo says, I meant other PhDs. Oh, let me go before that. I screw the PhDs. Great show. Fascinating, Frank. Fascinating. Thank you. Yes, I know. Well, Alex Petkas is a PhD. So the other PhDs, of course, yes. The tyranny of the experts. We all know that concept. All right. On quitefrankly.tv, the gold pills. And tonight we have, after the show is over, we have a wonderful after hours brought to you by All Things Art Bell on Rumble. And the after hours tonight is... Where the hell is it? Where'd I put it? Wait a second. Where the hell is it? I think it's 2 episodes of Ghost to Ghost. So it's going to be all ghost stories after the show ends in a little while. That'll be wonderful. Thank you, Robert Sarnes. Thank you, Sean Joe. Thank you, No Stud All Muffin. Empress Bitch to Use as great guest tonight, Frank, as usual. Let's take a call. 631, you're on the air. What is going on? How you doing?
Hi, Frank. This is Cam. I've called before.
Hey, Cam.
Hi, how you doing? I so enjoyed that talk with Alex, and I had questions because I have some classic books from 1806 that were my great-grandfather's.
Wow.
I know, and he was talking about the Homer's Iliad, and I was wondering if he noticed so many changes from the reinterpretation of that book that's being put into our schools now, because this is like the original, signed in 1806 copyright, and I enjoyed his talk because I do understand that history is being changed in a very subtle way, and I was wondering how anyone else felt about that, where they change things slowly, and next thing you know, you believe it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? We were talking about a little bit about that during the book club on Monday when we were doing Mask of the Red Death, where we realized that the version that we were getting was adapted for essentially new English readers. That original Poe was so much more. It's a much different experience and all that stuff. But now, obviously, there are adaptations that are there so that it's easier for people to catch on and to move their way up the ladder. Because reading Edgar Allan Poe, or as I said that night last Monday with Rich Barris, reading F. Scott Fitzgerald is essentially like is sometimes reading an extinct language. There are words in there you have never seen printed before. You never will see printed again. I know it's now some of it is just because it's the style of the times. There are other things that I'm sure that there's going to be more sinister reasons for the changing and the abridging of certain books. I mean, there's been plenty that people have said about the abridged versions of War is a Racket, and other things that are, that expose powers that be and all that. So
it changed the whole meaning
of
things, and I'm appalled by it. And I look at this and I say, well, I have like the original book way back when. The great collection. In fact, I need to talk to a book collector at this point because they're absolutely priceless, but that's how they were written in the beginning, and now I'm seeing how they're written now and what they're giving the high school children or the junior high school children. It doesn't even resemble what these books that I have say, which are originals signed by many of the authors going way back. So I'm lucky enough to have had them and still have them. But I wanted to ask him what he thought about these changes. He was a wonderful guest, and I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I'm glad you liked him. And you know what you bring up for me right now is it's something I have to figure out. I spent a good amount of time on it this year talking with
I know your book club, yes.
No, not book club, but the ability. No, the ability for you or anybody else to call in and ask a guest a question like that. I have to be able to figure this out on a technological level, and I brought in a couple of friends of mine who do audio video work on college level AV teachers and all that stuff, and it's confounding everybody. And until Zoom does something like Skype did, I don't know why they can't just do this where I can have a guest on, and thank you for the call, Cam, where I can have a guest on the screen with me like I just had Alex, and also be able to feed in an audio call from any number of you guys in the audience. That's why on Halloween night last year, and again we'll be able to do it this year, Dr. Albert Taylor is usually a telephone call for me. So he usually calls in on the telephone. I got his name on the lower third on the screen. And because he's an audio call on Skype, when I take anybody else's calls from the audience, I can merge them together, and you can essentially ask him a question. And last year was such an awesome, I loved it. It's the last big functionality question I have got to solve on this show. I can't believe how Skype and Zoom are limited in that way. Still, to this point, it's the last thing I got to do. I just don't want to add more hardware into the studio. I just don't want to do it. And every friend that I've gone to who is supposed to be equipped to answer that question has only come up with more questions. So I got to do that because I would love for Cam to be able to ask Alex that himself. I can't answer for him, and he's already off the air. And I had to get him off the air so I can take your calls. 2025. I'm going to endeavor. That's going to be a big endeavor. Let's see. Sean Joe, thank you. Swickly says, my game comes out tomorrow. BO6. It's pretty good. What is BO6? What do you mean your game? Are you a programmer, Swickly? Am I missing an inside joke? C. Blanche, thank you again. Delona, Amethyst Cat, and Nat Hendy. You guys are great. You guys are great. Okay. So give me a buzz and let me know what the hell you think. We have something else we can do, but here we have another call. 330, you're on the air. It's yours.
Hey, Frank, Jeff.
Hey,
thanks for taking my call. Great guest tonight.
Thank you.
Great guest. That was. I'm going to check. I love that stuff.
Good.
And you did a good job. Yeah, you got a PhD on there, and you sounded just like him. You know your stuff. Hey, listen, I kind of caught. I don't know if you. And from the guests last night, I don't want to bring up anybody else's podcast or their show on your show. It's just not fair. I only bring it up for the reason Tim Cass was having huge issues with his studio to the point where I think he quit. There was some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And there was somebody else, I forget who, somebody in the audience might know. It might have been Michael Malice or something. This stuff is going on. And it's not just the election, the cheating, whatever. I mean, they're so subtle about this. But you're doing great work, man. Keep it up. Now is no time to lose heart and quit. We gotta hang in there.
Oh, we're doing it. And Jeff, thank you for the call. Is that all you wanted to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've got thoughts on any. Yeah, there's lots of other things, but we're all good.
Okay.
We're all good. Just keep it up, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, hey, call in more often because it was great to hear from you. And don't worry. Listen, if we're having a conversation, people calling in and saying, "Hey, I'd like to plug another show, and we're going to be live in 5 minutes." That's scumbaggery, but that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. Just we're having a conversation, and I saw what was going on with the Tim thing. Now, I don't know, it's drama. You know, earlier on this week, you hear, Tim Pool's going to quit. He had some issues with the cameras and the computer. I'm like, if people only known the fucking shit that I deal with technologically over the years. The shit. Now, I understand the way that I rage sometimes when the camera's not on and I'm alone here and I'm trying to figure something out and I just can't stand my luck. You would think that I have 100,000 people waiting for me to go live. Now, I still have a nice audience, and they're all waiting for me to go live. But I feel like I have 1 million people. That is what I always have inside of me. I got to be live at 7 o'clock. There's millions that are out there, and I got to hang out with them. That's how much. So, but quit? Come on. But you know, all the drama subsided in a couple of hours, of course. I think he fired that girl, Hannah, and they brought in some kind of an outside administrative company so that they can run the business, and he announced that he's going to be a father. He got somebody pregnant. I don't know if he's been dating somebody, but so it's all behind them. Now, as far as what the technical difficulties are, I don't think that the deep state is behind every problem I've ever had over here. I don't think so. I just think that sometimes there's bad luck. And if you have a mismanaged studio, then it's very, very easy for everything to go to shit really, really quick. There's so much maintenance that needs to be done, so much freshening up that needs to be done with your equipment. I mean, this right over here, this thing I got right here, this Rodecaster 2, I purchased in late December last year as a part of all of the upgrades that we were doing in the studio. Now, remember, earlier this year, all of this was changed behind me. Okay? It's going to change again. Not this necessarily, but a lot of the things that, the aesthetics and stuff. So there's always things that I'm thinking about. All of this changed. This piece in front of me is like nearly an $800 unit. It condensed all the technology that used to be over here over my right shoulder. No matter how cool it looked with all the flashing lights and shit like that, it was all obsolete. And it was giving me problems. And it got condensed in this one unit over here. And it took not even 9 months. And there's just some weird audio signals going on. And it's been bothering me. And now we're replacing it after the show ends tonight. I've had tons of, you should have seen all the problems we had in January with the cameras. My camera right here is the only one that got an upgrade. Everything else is the old Logitech C90, C900s, whatever the hell they're called. It's the only Elgato in the room. I bought 5 Elgatos so that everything would look fucking sterling. And it still looks decent. They're all 1080 webcams. I just have to work. That's another thing I will be working with the lighting in here a little bit more, trying to get as much as I can out of these cameras, white balancing them just a little bit more. But there's so much that goes into it. Jim Lee. I give Jim Lee the keys to the car every couple of months. Say, tune her up, man. Tune her up. And he goes in remotely from South Carolina, and he is just turning knobs and cleaning things out and whatever. Because, God, I'll tell you, the monitor issues, the twinkling monitors, I can't, and that is just the last 2 years. I've got 20 years of this shit under my belt. When we started out, me, Anthony, and Mike, Mike, I'm telling everybody about, I'm just about to tell everybody about when we were starting out in the bedrooms. And when you and Anthony were in Anthony's bedroom with all the computers and all the control station that we made in there, and the Frankenstein together computers that we had that literally could not handle the sound equipment running through it, and all of the pitch shifting in our voices when we would talk. We were drawing so much power on these terrible little computers. When we would talk into the microphones, you would hear it was so ridiculous. So ridiculous. This was at a time when we couldn't afford anything. So if like the cooling fan in the back of a computer died on us, we would go and cut a cooling fan out of an old computer that was completely not, and we would just splice it all together. We would, electrical tape. And it was only over time that things started getting a little bit better. And I mean, you heard it the other night when we were watching the light bulb eating video from 2012. Every once in a while, you would hear Mike's computer go, "Excuse me, some blah 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 needs your attention." It needed an update, but we couldn't update it. Whenever we updated it, it would crash. It was so much. And then the internet, forget it. The internet, for years, we would have dropouts after dropouts after dropouts. You guys, some of you remember that. The dropouts prior to 2016. It was horrible. Actually, no, beyond that. Maybe until 2018 or 19. Because we were using this old, clunky, shitty-ass video encoder called VidBlaster. And it was so clunky compared to how lean OBS is. But I didn't want to learn the new system. I didn't even consider that the old system was the reason why we couldn't hold an internet connection. Quite frankly, between like 2015 to 2017, 18 or so, it was very common to see nightly episodes broken into 4 pieces. And every time I looked down and I would see that we lost the connection, it would be a fist. It would be a fist into something. It'd be kicking something. Son of a bitch. Oh. It was hell on earth. And it's not over, because as long as there are man and computers, there's going to be issues. There's going to be issues. Trust me, I wish I could fire me. I wish I could have fired me back then. You should have heard the poor Cablevision people when I thought it was the internet connection itself. Okay? When I thought it was the actual internet connection all those years, and we had to get on the phone. And the people, I would just be trying to get to the bottom of it, and they would get smart. Somebody would be smart with me, and I'd blow up. I couldn't take it. Because sometimes when a problem just sticks around so long. But, you know. And when I say I blow up, it was me in a room by myself. Anthony and Mike would hear me. But it's not like I went home and I'm like, you know, I'm a miserable and I'm making life terrible for my family. I just wanted things to be not even perfect, just decent. So, yeah, when I hear about Timcast, I'm like, please, miss me with that bullshit. You want to quit? You ain't quitting. Please. Okay, so let's go. One more call. 561, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you, Frank? This is Michael from West Palm Beach. I just wanted to wish the Yankees good luck. I'm really not into baseball myself, but you know I've been watching you for a few years, so I know how big of a win it would be for you. Also wanted to mention BO6 that the guy wrote the note about. That is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. That's coming up tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Wow, Black Ops 6. We're up to 6 already. I haven't downloaded. I think it's been like 3 after Call of Duty World War II came out. I think I only bought 2 more Call of Duties. World War II was so fun when that came out.
I never played that one, but I played the most recent WW2 one, which was Vanguard. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think you actually had a caller that called in a while ago. That was like a programmer. He said he built in like one of the destructible walls. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew what he was talking about. But I also had a question, a little bit off topic, but do you know whatever happened with the Trump sentencing dates? I thought there were like 2 or 3 dates already where he was supposed to potentially be sentenced.
Yes, I don't know.
They just like scrapped that all together because of the assassination attempts? I
don't know if they scrapped it all together. I saw a couple. See, it's one of those things where I just once it was made clear to me that we were not going to be dealing with it prior to Election Day, that his legal woes are not completely gone. They're still going to try to pursue him like the little piranhas that they are.
I know, they're fucking sick. I hate them all.
Michael, at one point, it's gotten to the point where it's just like, okay, so if it's not going to happen until after the election, I'm not even going to think about it. I don't even care about the news about it. I have to be able to just trim down the threads that I'm following in my head for a little while. So
I totally understand. I mean, you got to do it for your own sanity at this point, but it's just like, I feel like we've just been hit by a tsunami of just bullshit. Like, everything just goes away. Like, what even happened with the second guy that tried to assassinate him? Like, I mean, they didn't kill him. Like, he's still alive. I mean, we've heard nothing about it. It's just like disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Crazy.
I know. Well, hey, listen, thanks for the call. You know, you bring up something, Michael. I want to start taking advantage of some gaming. I'm not big with playing. You know, I play a lot of MLB The Show, and I do first person shooter games from time to time. I get some things whenever my friends like pressure me to get it. Hell Divers and all that stuff. I want to start doing that on Twitch. Because, like I said, things like that I would like to do on Twitch, that and live music to include the Twitch into, just so that the account has a purpose that could actually be sustained for a while. The show was going to implode the account, so I would like to start doing that stuff. I'll see if the Call of Duty gets some good reviews, maybe I'll get it again. I see somebody say, sorry, Frank, but fuck baseball and all woke corporate sports. Okay, then fuck the United States because its government is bad. Should we say to hell with the Christian faith because all the churches on the planet have been corrupted by one thing or another? Am I supposed to believe that Aaron Judge is carrying water? He is willfully carrying water for the globalists? Come on, listen, I understand. I'm not going out. I'm not. This is. I understand. If you don't like the sport, that's something else. That's something else completely. I understand. Even before we started seeing how, when Major League Baseball or even the NHL or anywhere else, all of a sudden, they got a diversity officer, we're screwed. Their end racism sign is behind second base. We know what corporate interests are getting. The players aren't doing that shit. And if you didn't like it prior to the infiltration, then I mean, this is just more of a reason why you're not going to watch it. But I'm not abandoning my love of the sport because, like I said, it's too much a part of American history. And yeah, and it's the same story told over and over again, no matter what the hell it is. Matters of faith, governance, culture, it's the same thing. They're coming for everything. Music, movies, they're coming for everything. Is the recording industry inherently bad? Is movie making inherently bad? Fuck the movies. It's just one of those things. Now, Major League Baseball is a monopoly. You can find independent league. I wish that we had more of an independent league system out there that wasn't inherently tied to a Major League Baseball team by way of the farm system. I wish we had better options. I really do. I don't like that. But, again, the history that has been accumulated in that organization over the last 100 years or so and more, I can't throw all that away. Got to throw that all away. I don't have to go out there and buy every jersey that I haven't bought a jersey in years. Now bringing my mother to the World Series, I had to think. I was thinking about every way to do that, and it wasn't to put. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. That's about going and having a good time and saying thank you to my mom for a lifetime's worth of baseball games she brought me to, because I wouldn't have the sport if it weren't for her. I think it's a very magical thing. Now, I don't root for corporations, and every once in a while you got to be able to set that aside and just understand the game that's being played so that you don't live miserable and in a state of self-denial and so that's what they want. They want us to just back off and give everything up. Doesn't mean you have to go all the way. and call them out when they're being ridiculous. And I watch most of the games on mute anyway. There's always that too. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock, and we have 2 episodes of Ghost to Ghost. 2 episodes of Ghost to Ghost. Tom says sports ball is for kids, not men. Oh, Tom. How hard, man, how exhausting it must be to be a man. How exhausting. The work that goes into being a man. No, no, leave it behind. Leave your athletic youth behind. You're a man now. Sit in the rocking chair. Smoke the pipe. Whittle the piece of wood. That's right, whittle the wood. That's it. This is the grueling life of a man. Pick up the rock. Smash the rock. You are now a man. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
Will you shut up?
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with Dave Roberts. Oh, God. I give my boys in blue a slight edge over your Yankees. Offenses and bullpens get hot and cold. We're both hot right now, so we'll see. Stanton rakes at Dodger Stadium. A little worried about that. Good luck, Frank. Good luck to you, Dave. Go to hell. If it's the real Dave Roberts. Jay Brits, thank you. Stove Vic, Oral Hershiser, and Durkistan. You guys are fantastic. Have a good one. Thank you to Two Dogs. Mike D says, I hope you never fully fix the tech issues. Your stoic rage. Oh, stoic rage. Talk about an oxymoron, but that would be me. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Go to quitefrankly.tv. The after hours is about to begin.